Welcome to the Sharpe Club. So happy to have you here this evening. I know usually I'm open here at 7 p.m., but tonight it's Monday night. So I'm here at a little bit past 9 p.m. on the East Coast. So glad that you're giving me a chunk of your evening. And we are talking tonight with some savvy, cool people about, can we organize voluntarily? I don't know if we can, but we are going to the Sharpe Club. We'll find out. First, I want to bring up on the man himself. He is a broadcast journalist and activist, and he is the freedom variant, Tim O'Connor. How are you, Tim?
I'm great, Larry. Thanks for calling me a broadcast journalist. I think that's my retirement plan, to become a famous broadcaster, because honestly, I've worked enough hours at physical labor. That's it. I'm ready.
I'm with you. I am totally in. And joining us also today, she is a doctor and an author, the one, the only Miss Charla Burnett. How are you?
Hey, Larry. How's it going?
It is going. I'm not sure how good it's going, but it's definitely going. And of course, a comedian and host of the Porcupine podcast, and the only host of the Cult of Us. There is only one host of the Cult of Us, and it is him. You know who I'm talking to. And it is Adam Nutter. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Yeah, Neil doesn't exist. We don't talk about him on the Cult of Us.
Neil does not exist. That is correct.
Exist in my
if
world.
Neil's watching now, he's pissed off. So that is very good. Yes, absolutely. So no, I guess the thing I really want to bring up here, more than anything, is we obviously have a lot of problems, and I hear it all the time. You all hear it all the time. Problem here, problem there. And as personally a libertarian, I don't want to use government to keep solving the problems, and government keeps failing at it. But there are people who are locally getting things done and actually having more impact often than government does. But at least even if the impact isn't as good, still there's impact and it's local. I don't know. Is that the right answer? Is local voluntarism, is that the right answer? Or am I fooling myself?
Can I go first, Larry?
Go.
Mind? Okay, so look, local volunteerism is a fantastic thing. I think it highlights this juxtaposition of the government takes everything from us, forces us to comply with their stupid programs that fail miserably, and then everything becomes a cause for these guys, right? So last night I did a show with my buddy Brian LaRusso, whom you know. We were talking about how now all of a sudden we have this vibrant volunteer community doing like volunteering for the fire department and ambulances and stuff like that. And now the government is going to go into direct competition with them. And we're concerned that basically it's going to raise our taxes here in upstate New York, where we're already overtaxed thanks to you guys from New York City, just literally ruining us.
It's all the cities, wise guy. It isn't just New York City. It's Albany, Utica, Buffalo, all just.
I got to point my angry finger at something, right? But
I know,
but
it's me.
regardless, right? That's what's really going on, because we don't have a paid service. We have a collection of volunteers, and now the government's actually coming in and competing with them for the common good, right? So there's something that we have to delineate here when we talk about common good.
Well, Charla, you've done this type of thing before more than once, right? I mean, has government come in and then all of a sudden said, you know what, you're out, we're taking over, or what's happened?
I mean, I've been a part of a lot of mutual aid initiatives that have popped up to fill gaps in service provision that the government isn't filling. And I think it really depends on the overall goal of why they're trying to organize and how quickly that needs to be completed. Like quick jump in, like during COVID, we were able to put together $30,000 and distribute thousands and thousands of meals across the city. And it was pretty well, except for, a few people who couldn't follow protocol, who could have potentially got people sick. So, were they as effective as, let's say, the military was at intervening and giving out food? I'm not really sure. And it really is dependent on, what technology they're using, where they're located, those types of things, how disciplined they are. And I think to some extent, the public lacks a little bit of discipline when it comes to observing hierarchy, particularly in activist circles where it's a lot of ego.
Sure. It's a good point. Good point. But do I want the military in my neighborhood?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I was like, yeah. Also, Larry, you were a former military man, right?
Yep.
I
Marine.
correct
Got
me
my
if I'm
stuff there on the corner right there. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
correct me if
Marine.
I'm wrong though, but I'm pretty sure the military is only good at one thing, and that is destroying other things. They're not good at.
We are good at that.
Yeah, they're not good at like the helping part. And I think any soldier would tell you like we don't really get trained in that. They just make us do it. It's not their thing.
There's one thing I'm trained in to help people. If you get like shot or something,
right? Yeah,
I can keep you alive until the medics come. That I can do. Like I'm not an EMT, but I'll keep you alive till the EMT gets there. That's about all I know how to help.
For the most part, though, you're gonna follow orders. You're gonna do what you're told. In activist circles, they're like, let's question everything and make sure that we build consensus around the way that we define these specific principles about the actions that we're taking.
You know, people suck. Yeah, for sure.
It's a mixed bag. I'm definitely not saying that the military should come in and help organize people, but I can definitely see the argument against community organizing and how ineffectual it can be at times.
Yeah, Nate says American Legion is a mutual aid organization. See, the veteran, Nate's got a very good point, right? I get it. Like, as a veteran, I think, to your point, Adam, I'm much better at helping now as a veteran than I was as an active duty Marine. As an active duty Marine, I was young and ready to go blow stuff up. I mean, I don't mean to be cruel, but that's what I was thinking when I was 19 years old, right? That's what I was thinking. I'm now in my 50s. I'm much better. I'm a pacifist. I would never want to go to war now. And I'm much more, and I would be willing to help much more people in many ways. So I think what Nate's point of it being, a veteran, unit to me seems to make sense versus an active duty unit. Okay, I guess we're right then. There we go. That was easy. So yes.
You solved all the world's problems.
I've solved all the world's problems. Veterans will fix everything. Easy day. I love it. I love it.
I know. I just don't think, again, I think privatization or a private community or a private whatever will still do better than the military, sure, orders and whatnot, but it's still the government. It still looks bad that you have guys in Humvees and stuff running through your town. Like, it's still a bad look. Like, I mean, think of it just to change the background. Think of like the riots of 2020 when we had like military stuff rolling around. No one like that. Like, different, of course, different scenario, of course, but like still, it just, I don't think that's the look to ever have that on the streets of America, and unless we're fending off a foreign attack for some reason, I always always stick to private.
Well, Pete Clark says, as he does every time, he shows our national debt, which means as more government spends, more debt is incurred. 31,454,980,005,742.40. And by the way, since he typed that, it has gone up.
Yes.
So yes.
Well, look, you might as well just say infinity, because like it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Like it doesn't like that number is fake. It's not even real. It's not even a real number. You can't. It's unattainable. Just say infinity, or just make up a word. It doesn't matter.
I can just go. It's a bazillion.
It's irrelevant. Right? Just say it's a bunch of silly bucks. Who cares? We're never catching it.
It's Chuck E. Cheese tickets, is what it is.
It's Monopoly money.
It's Monopoly money. I love it. But Charla, I got to ask: just because they follow orders, what if they're the wrong orders? And what I mean by that is Tim has a valid point. His question is, what is the common good? So I think the common good is I think we need to go through and we should get all these homeless people off the roads. And then someone else says, no, don't miss the homeless people. Let's go throw the cannabis people who are smoking, throw them all in jail. And then someone else says, whose kid is on the playground who's only 12, that's an evil parent. Let's put those parents in jail. So where is the common good? I think that's another problem, right?
Well, I was thinking the point that you just brought up kind of also talks about like who can organize, right? Mm-hmm. So it's usually the people who have free time, who aren't working 70 hours a week, who have a house full of kids. They're usually, we went to like the best schools and are kind of the elites of society. So those are the ones that we're expecting to solve all of our problems, but yet they're really coming from one very subjective position in life. And so is it really going to reach the people in need? And are those solutions really what those people want? And usually those questions aren't asked.
That's a good point.
Yeah, don't we see a problem with that every day where the government kind of comes up with a solution that first creates more problems. Second, doesn't really solve the problem it's set out to address. And then doesn't it just devolve into a jobs program for people's friends and kids and stuff like that? Like, so I want the common good to be us being able to make the decisions on who we're going to help. But I think the second we form our own police force, we just kind of became the government. So I'm concerned, like,
well, I think
the
what Charla's
bridge
saying
there.
is, all right, if you have a group of people, in this case, probably most of them are going to be, professional management class or spouses of one or the other, right? Right. Professional management class or spouses of. So unless they came from a tough neighborhood, and some have, don't get me wrong, some have come out of tough neighborhoods and moved to that level, that person will probably understand some of the needs, right? But who knows? What if, to my point, I came out of the South Bronx, but I left the South Bronx decades ago, right? So do I feel comfortable going back into the Bronx? I do. But do I know what the people today need? I don't. I'm being very forward. I don't live there now. I used to. So even though I came from there and I feel comfortable going back, do I really know what each person in that community really needs? I feel like that's her issue, is like, I may have the best intentions, right? So I really want to, and I'm feeling good, and I'm going to go help people, but then I may not know what the hell I'm doing. Did I read you right, Charla?
Correct.
Yeah.
So how do we solve that problem, right? Like, without forcing people into some sort of training program or paying them to get trained appropriately to take care of the specific issues of a specific community. And shouldn't the community itself bear some responsibility? Shouldn't like our mutual aid should start on the lowest level. Like, I'm ready if my neighbors have a problem. My neighbors are ready if I have a problem. Like, we will,
like the Amish.
We're already a mutual aid society on some level, right? Like, if let's say my neighbor's sick and I know he can't like snow blow his driveway, I go over and snow blow his driveway. Or last year when my neighbor was out of town and we got 3 foot of snow, I like broke into his garage, knowing full well he would be okay with that, to get his snowblower out, and I snowblowed everybody out. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he does. So like, he's in Florida. I didn't break into his garage. That's like,
Yes, you did, Tim. Stop lying. You did.
Don't
Don't worry. Adam's not a cop anymore. He won't get you.
We're already here,
Yes, he did.
ready to help each other. So the South Bronx has to be ready to help the South Bronx. They can't be saying, and when they're ready for that, that's when we can progress. Like,
So is the answer something as simple as saying, hey, local people, I have money, I'll give you money, go do something? Is it that simple? Because, well, if what the local people have is knowledge of what's wrong, and they're not outsiders, but to Charla's point, they can't stay home and not work, right? Because they got to go to work. They got kids, they got all the problems, they don't have the cash. Well, what if I'm some rich guy and now I have the cash? Should I just say, hey, here's money? Is that the right answer?
Nah, that doesn't help. I think no, I'm gonna give an example of I think it's Congo. There was like a company going over there drilling water wells for the Congolese people and stuff, and they were just drilling the water wells and leaving, and then they would break down or whatever. Like, they wouldn't know what to do, how to fix them or how to maintain them, because they did it. Essentially, they just gave them money, essentially, right? In a way, it was like, here, bye, and then they just completely crumbled. They couldn't figure it out. So then they're like, all right, know what we should do? Go there, show them how to do this, make them build it themselves under our supervision, and then leave. And then at least they know now it's theirs. They know how to build it. They know how to use it. We just kind of gave them like a nudge along the way. That if anything, would be a way to do it. But I'm dumb. I don't know. But like, that's that sounds like a smarter approach to something than just here's money. I
like that one.
Because that's what government does, right? Government just goes anytime there's a problem. Right?
Government does the first one. Government checks a box.
Right. They go.
Government just says, oh, did we build wells? We did. We built the wells. Then they leave.
Right.
It's like a nonprofit that will go and do the second thing. Right. The second thing you said will be a nonprofit. The first thing will be a government.
No, what the government just does, like, if there's a problem, right? Government just goes, what should we do here? I know, like, throw more money in government at it. And like, okay, it's like, it doesn't work. Right. So I think you got to also, everyone doesn't want to be helped either. Like,
that's another thing. What do you do for people who are like, I don't need your help? Why are you in my life right now? Go away.
Like, you're only, I mean, I learned that, kind of late in life, but like, you only help who wants to be helped. People who are like adamantly like, no, I'm like, you know what? I don't really care then. Why should I care? because you care. You don't
Well,
don't care. I don't. I'm not gonna
wait a
care
minute. Why should you care? Here's why you might want to care, Adam. It's a serious issue. You might not want to care, but if someone doesn't want to be helped, then at one point they're in a bad spot. Then they do something that's a little bit desperate because they're desperate. And that desperation either hurts somebody else or puts them in prison. One of the two. In either case, you're paying for that, whether you're paying directly or indirectly, right? So desperate people do desperate things, right? I don't think people are inherently evil at all, but I think desperate people do desperate things. And if someone doesn't want to be helped and then they become desperate, they will do something desperate. And very often we have to pay for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you still can't make, like you just said, that person refuses help and does something desperate. Okay, but like now we're going to like a psychology thing where it's like you have to break that person to get them to want the help. It's like you can't. It's like we're human beings. That's never gonna. There's never not gonna be a crime or a murder. Like that's never gonna happen ever. This isn't.
Charla, she's a doctor. Tell us what's
this isn't
happening.
Demolition Man.
It's also,
come on.
It's also extremely paternalistic, though, to say that you know right. And isn't that kind of counter to like the ethos of libertarianism of like, you don't tell me what to do. I decide for my life, my own life, and the path that I want to take. So like, is it our job to save everyone? Or can they choose self-destruction? They have that freedom.
I sometimes feel like we're supposed to, right? And I'm just being very forward. Sometimes I feel like, oh, if you're running for office or you're a government, like people expect you to just save everybody. Obviously, I don't want to do that, right? I don't think it's correct. But I'm saying how we as a society as a whole, I think we often feel that, right? We hear it all the time. What are you gonna do about poverty? What are you gonna do about so like, okay, I guess I have to solve all of the problems now because that's expected of me. And if I don't respond with some kind of answer, oh, well, what kind of politician are you? You don't have an answer to solve all of my problems, right?
Society.
Aren't we kind of in a catch-22 here, Charla?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of society goes, why would I help myself? Someone's going to come along and save me one day, right? And so why put any work into, managing your own life, your own finances and things that you do if someone's going to come bail you out in the end?
That's what big business knows very well.
Yes, they do.
I overheard.
They've learned that lesson completely twice.
No, that's so true. I overheard this chick at a beach like last summer, and she was talking to her friend. And she's like, "Why would I get a job? I have unemployment, and I still have like COVID money coming in. Why would I work?" It's like she just said it out loud, very open and honestly. And I was like, "Yeah, no, she's right. Like, why would you? Like, of course, you're getting paid twice from the government, and then whatever else. It's like, yeah, why would you go?
And you get to hang out at the beach.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not a bad deal. I'm getting 2 checks and I get to hang out at the beach. I'm not really mad at her.
I don't think it's fair because I work really hard 2 nights a week for an hour each time, and I should be the one enjoying my time.
That's what I'm saying.
What do you do for those other days?
Nothing. A lot of this.
There we go. I love it. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, then do me a favor. Follow these people on Twitter and on Instagram if you would. Head on over to Twitter and follow Tim at Tim4Senate. And go follow Adam at Tattooed Comic.
Yeah,
and by
I got
the way,
banned.
I've forgotten.
So
it's 2 T's.
2
and
T's.
2 O's.
Also, I got banned. My old one got banned. So let's build this one back up. Yeah.
I'm not surprised you got banned at all, Adam. I'm not surprised.
It was only a matter of time, really.
It was a matter of time. And please follow Charla on Instagram at Venture Novelist on Instagram. Please follow
you
them.
can follow me on Twitter too, but I don't have access to my account. So I'm never going to say anything back to you.
Yeah, whatever you feel is appropriate. It's all good. So let's go to something that I think is more controversial, right? And that is homelessness. This is the problem that everyone thinks only government can solve. You hear everyone talk about it. They all believe government has to have an answer. It's either housing first policy, or it's mental health policy, or it's insert specific magic bullet policy that it's going to solve home. I hear it all the time. Tim's nodding his head. He hears it too.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that we can do can we locally, voluntarily fix or at least make better? Because in New York City, it's not even better. I mean, it's worse in New York City. Can you even make it better locally or voluntarily?
I'm going to go sideways on you, Larry. Look, if we lower tenants' rights, a lot of the homeless problem could get taken care of. Some of these people have grant money. They'd be able to rent. But if they're a problem, people can't get them to leave. They're too high of a risk to get rid of them. I think in upstate New York, we have this housing crisis, right? But we have overzoned. We have tenants' rights. We have people trying to rent out houses, like, but they can't. They can only rent it out to like baseball people because we have big tourist industry, and they will only rent it out to students or baseball people because they know they can get rid of them and they know they're going to make money. There's just no middle class hustle allowed anymore. Like tenants' rights have overdone it. Property, of
So,
course.
so hold on. I want to be clear on this. This. You are going sideways on me. You're
I know.
telling me removing tenants' rights will make more tenants.
Would make renting to tenants and more, it would make housing more available and renting rooms more available. Now, will it solve the entire homeless problem? Not if it's completely a mental health issue, but I think some people are maybe on the borderline. They could reintegrate themselves as part of a family.
Well,
If
I want to
we were
be
take a look
fair
at
to the
tenants'
homeless
rights.
population, right? The homeless population is not at all a monolith, right? Not even close, right?
Right.
It's not a monolith. There is a chunk that does have mental illness. That's true. There's a chunk that has addiction problems. That's true. There's also a lot of working families who are homeless, and there are single people who are homeless who've just lost their job or lost their home or got divorced, right? So there really is. It's not a monolith. That the people you're talking about do exist, but that's
Right.
not all of homelessness. I think one of the biggest problems is when it comes to homelessness is the systems. I was thinking bureaucracy. There's so much bureaucracy in the issue that if you are a working family, you probably can get through bureaucracy, right? You have people in your family who know things, they can figure it out, they can fill out the forms. So if you're a working family, the system actually works better for you when it comes to bureaucracy. But if you've got an addiction problem or you have a mental health problem, you can't deal with the bureaucracy. It's impossible. You can't do it. It's impossible, and it fails you constantly. But you're going the opposite way.
Well, I'm not. I want to be clear. Like, I think when we get into people that, like you're saying, a single person that's just lost their job or something like
Right.
that, I think that if we were to take a step back, encourage this side hustle of letting people rent out rooms, and then having the backing of a government agency saying, "Look, if this gets uncomfortable, we're going to help this person move out faster," instead of them becoming
I
entrenched
see.
in your property. So the incentive to rent out to people. Like my aunt, for example, or people that I know rent only illegal places because
Yep.
that's all they can find. That's all they can afford.
All over New York City.
But there's
All
always
over.
this fear that the shoe is going to drop and everything's going to get shut down and people are going to end up like in jail over this. So what I'm saying is that government has gotten in the way or created a problem, and it has no way of getting out of the way to let us solve it. And I'm saying one of the things to look at would be tenants' rights and helping people that are marginalized because of their finances, but they could afford to pay something. You see what I mean?
Okay. Charla, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely close to this issue because I run a transitional home for migrants and people in displacement. So we started last year and we've had 180 guests, and we've been able to provide
great.
free or reduced rents to 18 people. And so I hear what both of you guys are saying, and I do believe that a lot of the laws around tenancy could be changed. I think there needs to be protections for tenants, but obviously, like for instance, here where I'm at, like you can only have as many non-blood relatives as there are bedrooms in a home to be a
Or
rental.
parking. They limit it by
Or
parking
parking
spaces,
or
right?
limited.
Like, what is
Yep.
that?
Yep, they limit it by parking. The system is essentially set up where you have to sign a year lease. There are very few places where you can sign a year lease. Now, for some of my tenants, they need to pay weekly. They can't pay monthly.
Right.
They don't know how to save. And when you're
Right.
poor, it's extremely hard to save.
Yeah.
So for them, it's been really successful. They've been able to pay rent where in the past they couldn't come up with it monthly, just strictly by changing it to a weekly pay structure. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And
I remember when I was a kid, Charla, we had that when I was a kid in the Bronx. And a lot of people pay by the way because it sounds bad, but the people who are in trouble are there's a big chunk of people who are in trouble because they have bad habits, right? That's why they're in trouble. They have bad habits. So if I don't get that rent off that Friday check, I'm not getting rent. Like I got to get the rent off the Friday check. Like they bring it, it's got to come to me. I got to get my rent. Then you go spend the rest of the money. Because if I go to the end of the month, there's no money left. You're totally correct.
yeah, or the landlord requires you to show pay stubs, but there are a lot of informal ways of making money. Like, I don't care how you make your money, you just need to pay
Yep.
your rent. And
Give me
why
a
is it any
cash.
of our
Give me
business
cash.
where your money comes from? It could be your daddy or it could be your sex work. I don't care. Like
Yep.
you're just being a part of society by paying into the pool and taking care of yourself and taking everybody here at a Moja house, because that's what we're called as a Moja house. We have 3 houses, 9 bedrooms. And so we've been dealing with this for a while, and I've come to the conclusion is that the premise of this whole situation is we're presuming that the government wants to solve homelessness, because I'm not convinced that they
Ooh.
are at all, not even a little bit, because I've taken my complaints from the local to HUD and they don't care. And in fact, Section 8 is just one model to reallocate federal funding, our taxpayer dollars, to private investors. And all that money just goes into the pocket of a select few people's hands who not only
knocking
own
it out of the park, Charles. Look
not
at you
only
go.
own the properties, who
Imagine
not only own
that.
the properties, but they sit as directors of public housing agencies, of nonprofits who distribute those Section 8 vouchers. So it's all a scam. So the whole
Thank you.
conversation is whether or not the government's going to help us with homelessness is just silly, because that's not their intention and never has been.
Absolutely. Oh, wow.
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 That's all I
Wow.
can say. Wow.
Wow. Well, yes, and yes. It's
I feel
like
not
it's- I
worthy
guess.
now, Charla. Like that
my God.
literally slayed me right there. That
We have a
was amazing.
super
Should've
chat. And
saved
guys,
her
by the
for
way, if you
after
want
me.
to, you can go over to Larry Sharpe YouTube and you can super chat if you like. Joe, thank you for the $5, Joe. Joe says, while you're discussing homelessness, I have a question for you. What do you do about people who are homeless who don't actually want to work? That is a valid question. Right? To your point earlier, Adam, some people
Right.
don't want to do anything. What if
Exactly
they
I was
don't
gonna
want to
say.
work?
I was actually going to say this before Charlie's point. It's like, I shouldn't even bring it up now because she crushed. Whatever, I'll say it anyway. So, my point was that I was going to go.
Yeah,
this
follow
actually goes-
Charlotte.
This
Do that.
actually goes. I know you kill him. You crush. You. That's like the worst as a comic. It's like she crushed before you. You're like, come on, dude. You're like, I gotta fucking follow that. So no. But that's what I was going to say. I was going to say this goes right back to the thing of like, yeah, people don't want to be helped all the time, and also, Charlotte, you probably know this, but multiple studies have been done. I think 2/3 of the homeless population is addicted to drugs or alcohol. And then I think 2/3 is also mentally ill. So it's actually a major chunk. It's kind of, this is for an example for people if they're not catching this. You know, when people go like the gun crowd, the anti-gun crowd's like, oh, the gun deaths, and you go, well, 2/3 of those are suicide, and then it drops it like significantly. Or like the abortion thing, it's like, you know, people are like, how about incest or rape? And you're like, it's less than 1% of a kid. You know, it's like there's like all these variables of like these things that no one ever wants to be honest with. Well, that's the honest one. Most of them are actually fucked up or home or drunk or you know, drug addicts, whatever, or mentally ill. So it's like, yeah, you might not help those people. Sorry. It's not like they're all looking for help. They're just gonna be like, no, I'm cool doing heroin in the park. You're like, all right. Like, do you, King? Like, but you can't have that either, because like I think kids are more important than a homeless guy doing heroin in the park.
All right, so
You know,
Adam,
go
that's
do heroin
also
at
a
a
great
heroin
point.
center where they don't have to be around children.
Sure.
They could do that.
But parks are pretty cool. You're forgetting that.
Parks
you know?
are cool, but they
Slides
could,
rule.
but they could do it in the center and then stroll into the park later.
Still
could
bad.
always do
They
that
shouldn't
too.
be around kids at a park. Let me just make that very clear.
Okay.
As long as you're not being a jerk, I don't care if you come in high. And that's always been, you're not allowed to keep your drugs at our house or on our properties. But if you want to go do drugs and come back, as long as you're not an asshole, I don't care. That's your business.
Well, I like that.
You
It's
know?
very libertarian. Look at you. I like that. Nice.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tim, go ahead.
Well, so Adam, like basically, I agree, right? If people don't want help and they feel like they're getting through life the way that they're getting through life, standing on the corner, grabbing $100 a day and going and buying a bottle of booze and paying their rent, like, or wherever they stay, that's their business, right? Like, you can't help people that don't want help, but the people that do want help, the government is, like you said perfectly, is the problem, right? They're the ones standing in the way of this.
The system is what drives me crazy. But shouldn't we have a system, right, that whether it's through local or government or whatever it is, shouldn't it be a system that encourages people to get help? Shouldn't we be nudging them? Shouldn't we be making it easy, right? One of the things I talk about often is homes like you're talking about, Charla, same type of home, but a home that's specifically meant for, like, say, single mothers or war veterans, right? That's made just for them. They pay 1/3 of whatever their income is. The only thing they have to do is tell you what their income is. That's it. So they pay 1/3 of their income, whether the income is whether income comes from the government, whether it comes from social service, doesn't matter. It's 1/3 of whatever you pay that. So you pay 1/3 of that and you can stay. And you do that. And what winds up happening is they're paying something, right? Something's getting paid. And you can do it weekly if you want to. And then people are encouraged to show up because some people are going to get their act together, right? Some will. Some aren't, but some will. And when someone gets their act together, what I've seen happen constantly is now I want to help others, right? I got my act together because I used to be an alcoholic, or I used to be an addict, or I used to be whatever the thing is. And now I want to help others. And the thing is, to my point earlier, if I go back to the South Bronx now, no one's going to listen to me. They might like and say hi and shake, hey, like you, hey, Larry, glad you're back home. That's it. But no one's going to listen to me. But if I had their problem and now I go back and say, I want to help people with that problem, they'll listen.
I don't know about that.
So
Because I came back to my home city, like, and I came from a trailer park with a single mom. You know, like I grew up extremely poor, went to 7 different schools before I hit college. Like I wouldn't say it was the roughest life, but it definitely wasn't easy. And most of my friends are addicts and have passed away. Like I just lost my friend who was 8 months pregnant. She overdosed in April of last year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. That's terrible.
So I thought, this will be easier than doing international development abroad, where I'm like culturally completely different and a white lady.
But hold on. Have you been an addict in the past?
I mean, I've used drugs recreationally. I'm coming out with a book called "I Love Drugs" to talk about, because everybody else, most people have, including alcohol, and caffeine. Nobody counts that as a drug.
But you haven't been an addict.
I wouldn't say I have been. I would.
That was my point, right? My point was, if you had that problem, in the case addiction, and you would then come back and said, "Look, I have been in the same shoes you have been with this problem." In this case, addiction, but it could be any problem that someone may have. Don't you think they're more apt to listen to you?
I don't necessarily think that that's true, because you're still, you won, you overcame. You think it's easy because you're done with it. It's the same thing as like, I've been homeless, but I came here and I'm helping people with their homelessness. And they're like, well, you're a doctor. Like, what you don't know anything about our problems. You went off and did these things, and now it doesn't matter
an elite
anymore.
issue?
Oh, for sure.
So that's what it is.
And now, because I'm quote unquote a landlord, I'm now the man. So
see, now that's where you messed up. You messed up becoming a doctor and owning property. That was your mistake right there.
Yes. So for the left, I'm a centrist. For the right, I'm like an ultra leftist. And so I never really feel like there's a spot for me where I 100% fit in.
Welcome to the Libertarian Party.
Thank you. Yes. Welcome to Libertarian Party.
You will never fit in, and you are not a real libertarian. Let's get that right out of the way right now.
That's true.
Yes. There is a saying in Libertarian Party: you are not a real libertarian until you've been called not a real libertarian at least 5 times.
Yeah.
Then you're a real libertarian.
Or
exactly
Nazi.
Right.
That's fun.
Nazi too. Yes.
Nazi
also. Yes. You have to get all of those. Yes. You must be called all of them.
I was conservative and a socialist in the same minute.
There we go. Also works.
I'm like, I don't like taxes, and like, you hate poor people. I'm like, that's it.
There we go. Yeah,
nailed it.
That's what it is. Exactly right. Yes. So, but no, it's funny you said it, because when I've seen many of the local things work, it's been run by people who've had that problem. So maybe I've just missed the other ones, but I feel, or maybe, you know what? Maybe it isn't the fact they've had that problem. Maybe it's the fact they just don't quit. Maybe it's their tenacity. Maybe that's why it's been successful. Maybe it actually isn't the fact that they've done it. Maybe it's tenacity.
I think it's their solution that they're trying to push, because if the solution works, then people will attach themselves to it. If the solution doesn't work, then they're not going to get on that train.
Got it. But then here's another problem, though, right? What I get hit with often, particularly people who would self-identify as liberal, they will very often tell me, Larry, your local stuff is nice, but it's not scalable, so it's useless. It's got to be scalable or it's useless.
And then you go, you're liberal, you're useless, and then you just move on with your day. You just carry on your conversation to somebody else who's not a complete idiot.
That is one answer, Adam. That's correct. That's one answer. It is. But I mean, isn't that like, Tim, you talking about Brian, right? Brian's making this. I don't know how far it's up and running yet, but I know he was working on this homeschooling community center.
Correct.
Right?
That is exactly.
How is that? That's not scalable, is it? Is that, I mean,
Well, it's not scalable, right? But the issue is that it's serving a need in our community because our schools have no, in our area, have no at all, none. Our public schools have no competition, right? So Brian it's a niche play, really, but it's also like needed. And so I think he's going to do really well with it. I don't think he's in it to make money. Brian has done well with some things that he's done. So he's focusing, like, let's talk about Brian for a second, because he's having an event on February 4th where he's going to teach people how to find who their tax assessor is and find out who their county reps are and their town reps are. And he's going to have people go through their websites and check out how being part of the government is beneficial in many ways. Lower taxes is just one of the ways for the people that serve on the town boards. So scalability of a school, like, do we even want that? We want, I want a one-room schoolhouse, right? Like, let's go back to that, where we're kind of like really challenging people, really teaching people to think critically, which has come under attack in the last few years. I've never understood why, but I think that when there's a real need, the service can arise anyway. We do need less government interfering with it, though, right? Because they're going to directly compete.
so
with
your point is, who cares if it's scalable?
Right. Who cares if it's scalable? Mutual aid should, like I tried to make the point earlier, mutual aid works best in small communities like me and my neighbors. And that someone from the South Bronx being in the South Bronx and saying, hey, let's make this a little bit better, and finding 3 or 4 people that agree with them, maybe that grows into 50 or 100. That's a mutual aid that can work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I go in and say, hey, even if it was with me with money, and I go in there and say, look, I'm just going to throw money around till you guys start helping yourselves, I don't know how effective. I don't know how effective.
Just imagine you
helping yourself.
Stack full of money.
I do want to address the thing Tim talked about the schools, though. You said, well, first you said, why I never understood why they would teach you not to be self-critical thinker, because that means you're self-sufficient and the government doesn't have a need for you. You're anti-government then. That's
absolutely.
why. Number 2 is the size of the school doesn't matter. It's the curriculum that's being taught through the school. It's the school could be 100 kids a class. If the curriculum is like, this is how you like build shit. This is how like you can start a fire. This is how you keep track of your money. This is how this is. That's the important stuff, right? It has nothing to do with the size so much. Yeah, it shouldn't be 100 kids a class. I'm just being facetious, but it should. It's all about the curriculum. Like it really doesn't matter about the. Again, who's teaching
here's
it.
the weird part, right? And this is what people aren't noticing. I've been talking about this, and Tim, you've heard me talk about this for literally years. College now, unless you want to be a licensed professional, you want to be in, say, a doctor, lawyer, teacher, something like that, college is becoming less and less valuable. It's not even close. It's horribly unvaluable. So bad that now there's 3 states right now, I think 3 states now, who have already taken away all requirements for college degrees for state employees. And Google now has taken away a requirement for college degrees for their employees anymore, because they don't have any value. It just puts their people in debt. They want more money because they're in debt. They want more everything because they're in debt. It just makes for worse employees. So they don't want you to have a college degree. And not just that. I said this years ago. This is probably 10 years ago or more. If in the elite tech world, where like small tech companies are growing, you have a master's degree, that's a no hire. Literally a no hire. That's been true for 10 years in that world. It's becoming more and more true. And now here's the part that's going to make you very happy, Tim. There is now a push right now to hire people who've been homeschooled.
Because
that is now the push. Right? Oh, you've been homeschooled? I want you. They want homeschoolers now.
That makes sense to me. I took my economics degree from SUNY Binghamton right to the Child Protective Services of Otsego County. Like, there was no correlation to anything I learned in college. It was just, we need a body. We need a guy who's familiar with poor people, because like Charla, I grew up poor, single mom, trailer park kind of deal, incredibly rural. Our big move was up. We moved up to live on a farm, right? Where I was slave labor for 4 years or 5 years. Okay. So they wanted a body, and they wanted me to be able to prove that I could push the buttons, dot the I's, cross the T's, and man, were they in for a surprise, because I did none of that. I stayed for 6 months and I said, I'm out of here, man. This is crazy town. This is nuts what we were doing. So that's, I was heading down
that's very funny. I've heard so many people tell me as I've crossed the state, people say, Larry, I'll hire anybody with a work ethic. That's all I want. I don't care if they have to react. One guy, she told me this. He said, here's my hiring policy. I tell them the interviews at 8. I open the door at 8. If they're actually there, they're hired. That's it.
I've hired plenty of people that way. Like I'd start a small business, like doing construction. Oh, you're here? Oh, you have a car? Oh my God, you're hired.
You'll show up when I tell you to show up. Oh my God, you're hired. Yes.
Yeah,
I guess it goes to your point, Charla. People just don't want to do what they're told. So yes,
you can break stuff. You can lose stuff. You can ruin a tool. I don't care. Come back tomorrow. Everything's going to be fine. You have a valid driver's license. You're a hero, man.
You're a hero. I love it.
Larry,
hero.
To your point about like how like you're saying master's degrees don't matter. You know, the only place in the whole really country that really matters anymore is academia.
Yes,
which is just a super liberal, left-leaning, up their own asshole and like thing anyway. Like, you have 4 degrees, and it's like no one gives a shit.
It's so funny that you say that though, because I see higher education as being extremely conservative, still extremely elitist, unattainable for most people. Like, it was very difficult to learn how to speak the language to be successful in that space, because that's not where I come from, and coming from somebody who's like, we often portray people in rural communities or who grew up poor as being conservative, but in actuality, they're much more like libertarian, more like leave me alone, don't tread on me. Whereas higher education, they're the establishment. They're trying to maintain the government. So technically, they're kind of actually more centrist conservative than they would be liberal. I think there are liberal arts programs.
They're super left leaning. All these colleges nowadays are, so far left. It's unless it's like a Christian college, like they're all just very far, especially the state ones.
No,
like,
I think what Sean's saying is she means that they are conservative, meaning within their own world. Like, we are the elite.
For sure.
I think that's what she means.
They've been teaching the same curriculum, for half a century. Nothing's really actually changed. And they've always accused for hundreds of years of university and educated people of being liberal. And I think that's it's confusing for a lot of people, because just because you're smart doesn't make you liberal.
But there's two separate parts that I bring up. And I bring this up in the you see this in New York State across, or even K through 12. There is a big difference between administrators and teachers. And one of the things that has destroyed New York State specifically is that we only have one union. We should have 2. We should have an administrators union and a teachers union. And we don't. Every time they use the word, I'm an educator, that means you're not a teacher.
Right.
So yes, that's what it means. When you say educator, it means you're not a teacher. You're an administrator, and the administration, I think, is the biggest problem, Adam. That's my view. I could be wrong, Charlie. The administration they're the ones who are making the rules. They're the ones who are pushing people out. They're the ones who are making teachers leave and go do something else. It's the administrators who, in my view, are the hard left. Teachers are trying to do the right thing. And then they get hammered by the administration, and they either kowtow to the administration or they leave. And I think many of them are leaving.
So
that's just my view.
From my little inside knowledge of that, my wife's a teacher, obviously. And she teaches at a Catholic school. So it's a little different. But she always talks about, like, a lot of people in other schools, especially her friends and stuff, be like, there's a real liberal contingency here of thought. And it's like, if you have any conservative, and I mean like traditional conservative values, like you are brushed aside. Like, you are absolutely like a black sheep of the company. Second thing I'm going off of is I watch a lot of podcasts, a lot of professors who been excommunicated from whatever college they're from, and they're like, I'm not even a Republican. I'm just like, we shouldn't talk about that, right? That's wrong. And they would just and it's like some super left thing about some sort of trans identity or something like that, and they're like, well, that's not really important, that's not really what we're doing here, and they'll just get shouted down in silence. The Weinsteins are one example of one of the ones I can think of, but they're just one example. I've seen multiple professors now across multiple podcast platforms talking about this, so I don't think it's a conservative thing at all. I definitely think it's I'm sure there's conservative.
But they'll protect rapists for years. Like,
but I don't think that's a liberal
MSU is like a real thing.
I think it's a money, ego, image thing. I don't think it's like
so. Let's move to that point, though, right? If it's not really scalable, and we don't really care if it's scalable, what I'm hearing is that we're totally okay with it being local. Who cares? It's all local is fine. So don't we want a system to where government do we want a system that government stays out of the way? to where government creates a framework. I mean, my worry has always been twofold, right? Government tends to do one of two things. It either gets too involved to where now nothing else can exist. It pushes everything else out to where everything is either an actual government agency or it's a nonprofit funded by a government agency, right? So it's one of those two, right? There was everything's crowded out except government, or it walks away and leaves people completely just in the lurch, nothing. Where I would like government to just be, I oversee to make sure if there's any local bullies doing bad things, I prosecute them, right? I just defend the rights of the poor or the currently disenfranchised. That's what I would like government to do, defend the rights of the currently disenfranchised. But I hardly ever see that.
That's not their job, right? Their job is to grow government, right?
I thought their job was that, Tim. I thought their job was that.
Their job is to protect people with lawyers, with tax laws that allow them to exploit the system and make themselves rich.
And
That's what their government's for.
They have to signal their virtue on a regular basis. Let's not forget, because that
Also
is
true.
one of the most important forms of government that I see every day right now. Conservative, Democrat, doesn't matter. They both want to build a parking garage in downtown Oneonta where the government gets the money. Okay, so like, I gotta wonder, guys, if
or you could be like our mayor here in Lansing and build a sand beach on one of the dirtiest rivers in the nation. So, you know, it's all about that image.
Urban camping is up and coming, guys. Like I'm telling you right now.
So we are talking about left and right and liberal. So guys, do me a favor. Perfect segue to my sponsors, theadvocates.org. If you want to support the show, you can. My sponsors, The Advocates. Head over to theadvocates.org and take the world's smallest political quiz. It's like 2 minutes and it's free. You take it. Once you're done taking it, you share it. People see it. Will you come up more conservative? Will you come up more liberal? Will you come up more libertarian, more authoritarian, more moderate? Reality of it is the largest chunk of people come up moderate, believe it or not. And the smallest, luckily for us, is authoritarian. However, here is the scary part. We've been giving this test out for decades. Decades we've been giving this test out. And one thing we know for sure is authoritarianism is growing. We're having more people pop authoritarianism. And some people think, well, they pop up and they're surprised. No, if you look at my Twitter feed from last week, you'll see people pop up proud to be authoritarian. They're totally okay with it. They're like, you know what? We need a good dictator to get some people in line. More and more people are going down that road.
Damn, I might have.
So, guys, show me that you're not. Take the test. Take the advocates. Share it. Support my sponsor. It's free. And also, by the way, if you want to support if you're happening to watch this on Twitter, then retweet this right now. If you happen to be watching on Twitter, retweet this right now so that other people can see it. And do me a favor, one more favor, support the people who came here. When it comes to Twitter, support Tim for Senate on Twitter. And of course, the man himself, Adam Nutter at Tattooed Comic. And by the way, if you're listening, that's 2 T's and 2 O's. And on Instagram, please support Charla at Venture Novelist. I'm sorry, go ahead, guys.
No, so I think I might have skewed the numbers for that quiz, because sometimes I go on there and I can see how I can answer to go all the way right or all the way left, see how fun it is, see if I can become a Nazi or a super left socialist. I'm like, what do I got to answer? Like, how do I get to these? Like, I just see which answers get me there.
Yes.
That's a good idea. I do want to point out something. I felt like when we had kind of a disagreement there about the structure of whether school is conservative or liberal, I feel like what school, especially higher education, is it's an authoritarian versus a libertarian perspective. So we see libertarian professors who want to present their research, their science, their issues with what's going on. They get ostracized, right? They run counter narrative. Running a narrative is authoritarian. And so running counter narrative is libertarian in a way, right? So they could call themselves Republicans or Democrats or conservative or liberals. They're freaking authoritarians. And then there's freaking non-authoritarians. And I make no mistake, there are right-leaning like fascists. There's left-leaning fascists. And that's the war in our society right now is people want the power to punish the people that have offended them, that they perceive to have hurt them. And so they're desperate. I saw it in Larry's race, like when people were trying to tell me, I have hundreds of friends that are Republicans, and they're like literally went off nuts on me when I said, there is no way Zeldin's winning, and there's no way I'm voting for him. And as a matter of fact, guys, GOP, you ought to run Andrew Cuomo if you really want to win that bad, because that guy has proved he won So he can do it, and that's who you guys should be running.
Just run a Democrat. That's the easy way. Republicans, you want to win? Run a Democrat.
He can win, Larry. He can win. All right.
It's true.
So that's the stuff I put up with, and that's who I recommend they run next time around. Andrew Cuomo.
There we go.
Go get your win,
And
guys.
go win.
Get your win.
He's not wrong. He actually, you're not wrong. It's absolutely, you absolutely will.
Yeah,
No one has
there,
guys. I
morals.
covered a couple different subjects. I do that sometimes. I just kind of spin in circles. I can't help it.
It's fine.
It happens all the time. People are like, I'm this now, and you're like, all right. Like,
Yes, exactly.
It's funny because like you're like by doing that, you're like, oh, so you just change major ideologies overnight without really thinking about it.
The only way I respect
of course.
that, Adam, is if they tell me up front, right?
Sure.
If they just go, look,
Sure.
this is you're Larry.
Oh,
where
you're
you
Ron
live
Paul
and-
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you look at where I live, right? In my area where I live,
Great.
for my local race, Republicans haven't run a candidate in 10 years. Haven't run a candidate. And then the last time they ran a candidate, that candidate lost, I'm not joking, by 70 points.
Hilarious though.
God.
They lost
Funny.
85 to 15. And then 12 years before that, they haven't run a candidate. So in 22 years, the Republicans have run one candidate who lost by 70 points. That is how blue my district is. So if I ever run for Democrat here, I will say, I'm not a Democrat. I just can't win any other way.
Yeah.
I would just openly say it. I can't win. The only shot I got's Democrat. I'm not. Then I'd be okay if you openly just said, yeah, I don't care about any of this stuff. I'm just going to.
No, I
I'm just-
totally,
yeah.
like I said, like Ron
is
Paul's a
fine.
great example. He's like, I'm running Republican because I'm going to win that way. I'm like, yeah, I get
Yes,
it.
at least I can respect that. Yes,
Totally get
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
By the way, most people won't know, because I am a true New Yorker, that I know that the map on Adam's head is the map of Staten Island.
Okay.
I
The
am
one
from
county
Staten
that voted
Island.
for Trump in all of New York. Oh,
That is
the
correct.
5 counties downstate.
Yeah, no,
I'm
That is
happy you
correct,
said
yes.
something because it doesn't look like a map.
it's just,
It
it's
is.
just,
That's
no,
why I
it's
happen
just
to
Staten
know.
Island. It's just
Adam,
It's Staten
Adam, it
Island.
looks
I
like
see
a
it
boot,
now.
man. What are you
Yes.
doing wearing a
That's
boot
why I
on
was
your
saying
head?
it.
What is that?
That's why I was saying it.
I'm
Charla,
also
'cause I
Italian.
didn't
I
want
am
you
from
thinking-
Staten Island, so I'm Italian. So it,
Okay,
there we
it comes
go.
with territory.
There we
Um,
go. Yes.
Larry, circling back to this question of like, is it worth it if it's not scalable? I feel like
Yes,
the
please.
concept of scaling is like kind of like a liberal capitalist's like narrative of whether something's working or not. Like, can we make it bigger and better so that it's everywhere, so that it permeates everyone's lives and culture? But like, what works well for mutual aid is the fact that it's decentralized. And so there
Right,
isn't someone coming in from a different place who doesn't understand the culture, doesn't understand the needs and the solutions that need to be involved. I think what's different now in the way that we could scale mutual aid is through technology, where it's just providing a tool for those doing things locally to do them
Oh,
more
got it.
effectively. And that's kind of what we've been talking about at Emoja House is like, how can we make what we're doing here easier for everyone else to do? Because I don't want to own 100 properties. That sounds like my own living personal hell. I like my few little properties here. That's good. But how can I teach someone else in my city or in a
Right.
couple cities over how to create a decentralized housing project just like this one, but where the culture fits that location?
So you're going to teach Tim how to do it in his area, Adam how to do it in his area, and me how to do it in my area.
I've tried. I'm not interested anymore. I'm zoned out of it. I'm marketed out of it. I feel like every time I try to do something, it's illegal. Every time I try to do something, the tax man comes after me. They can kiss my butt, and that's it. I'm done giving them my free work and my free labor fixing up properties. I'm done. They ruined me. I've had it.
Fair.
That's
facts.
that bugs
I
me.
live in the poorest part of where I live. I'm the poorest person where I live. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I live in Lower Bucks, which is like the richest part of Bucks County, and I don't belong here. So like I don't have no say at all what goes on here. They're like, shut up. We have millions of dollars. I'm like, all right.
Well, in Lansing, you
believe it
don't
or
need
not-
millions of dollars. Like properties out here selling 3-bedroom for $75,000. So
Wow.
you
I
can
would
come
be a
here and do
millionaire
a
in
lot of
Lansing.
work. Right, exactly. You would be a millionaire in Lansing.
I'm poor as fuck
Um,
here.
So it really like the model wouldn't fit everywhere. It wouldn't work in New York City, for example. It would be
Right,
too
sure.
expensive. But for here, it worked. And for similar, smaller size cities, would probably be a good fit. You
But I
know?
think
Even
in New York
upstate
City, it
New
could
York.
work in one way. If you believe it or not, that it should be corporatized for New York City because the price is so expensive and the density is so much. If you put a name of a company on that building, the marketing value would make up for the loss, if that makes any sense. So if you have a company that has a large marketing budget,
Mhm.
10, $20 million, they could easily take this building, put their name on it. The marketing benefit they would gain from that would offset it because of all the people around. It's dense enough for them to actually gain from it. So in the case of a place like New York City, I think you have to add a corporation to it.
Well,
Other
Emoji
places
House
will
is a
matter.
corporation. We're not a nonprofit.
No, I mean an actual big corporation with a large
Yeah,
marketing
like
budget.
a
Right,
big
like-
name where you'd be drawing people in. I mean, we
Like
also
Taco Bell.
we use
BlackRock.
Airbnb as a form of marketing. So we use
BlackRock 2.
them.
No BlackRock. I'll
BlackRock
take
2.
Taco Bell. I'll take Taco Bell.
You
Fine.
see the
Taco Bell.
Skeletor lady from New Zealand? Apparently, she's gonna work there.
Is that
She's
right?
working at Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Good.
No. Apparently, she's gonna be become like an executive at BlackRock or something like that.
Oh, surprise,
that makes
surprise,
total
right? Like the
sense.
most
Yeah.
authoritarian psychopath on the face of the planet
Yeah.
is going to work for BlackRock.
She will.
Congratulations,
No, what she'll
BlackRock.
do is she will sell out all that beautiful New Zealand land because they're not making movies on it anymore. They can't make the movie industry collapsed because of COVID. Right, the movie industry in New Zealand exploded with all the Hobbit movies.
That's because Peter
They're all
Jackson
made in
stopped
New Zealand.
making The Hobbit. That's why.
That's correct. but the industry actually exploded. They had Netflix movies. The industry was growing from that because him making all those movies, New Zealand built up their infrastructure, right? So they could take it. Like if you go to New York City, you can make a movie in New York City in 10 minutes. New York City's infrastructure is completely prepared to support anybody making a movie. Literally, doesn't matter. We are all LA, same thing.
Right.
Totally prepared to support anybody making a movie easy. New Zealand didn't have it. So Jackson comes with his Hobbit movies. They build it all up. Now movies being made in New Zealand, and she shuts them all down with COVID. Industry shot.
What else is being made in New Zealand besides those movies?
Cheap.
What else is going
Whoa.
on there?
Wasn't Game of
Whoa.
Thrones shot?
Oh, Game of
I
Thrones
think
made,
that
was
was
made
Iceland
all
and
over
stuff.
to include New Zealand.
Oh, part of New
all over.
Zealand? Yeah.
Yeah, all over. Game of Thrones was made in Iceland. I mean, it was made
Yes.
everywhere.
Iceland, yeah.
Game of Thrones was made everywhere. But the Hobbit movies were made in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now
covered a
they're
lot
like,
of
well,
topics
let's shut it all down. So yeah, not awesome. Not awesome. So it makes total sense. I completely get what you're talking about. It makes total sense. So let me grab a comment I think is awesome. Brian says, I think youngsters have to need to think about what kind of world they'll be leaving for Willie Nelson and Keith Richards.
Hey,
They're gonna live forever.
He's not wrong. I mean,
he is not wrong.
he's not wrong. I'm just saying he really isn't. So yes. By the way, guys, again, if you're watching on Twitter, please retweet this. If you're watching on YouTube and you're on Larry Shop YouTube, you can super chat if you want to support the show. But no matter what you do, please hit that like button. It does matter. It's how I get past those algorithms. That's how I get past them. So please click that like button. It does matter. If you can follow these guys, it's awesome. Please follow them on Twitter. Tim for Senate. Tattooed Comic. If you are listening to this, tattooed is two T's and two O's. I had to check that myself before I wrote it. And of course, you can also follow Charla on Instagram, Venture Novelist on Instagram. So I love your idea of using technology so that anyone can pick up, right, the thing to do it locally. And that's how you do it. Plus, it's also free. So it means you don't have to have a bunch of money to start something. That's not a bad deal. I like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel like
actually what I studied for my doctorate is the use of geospatial technologies and participatory governance. So people governing themselves through the use of technology. And
There
we
we go.
see
I love
we
that.
see this going on. There's actually in New York and LA, they have eviction maps where they monitor evictions and how they're being done to protect tenants. We've seen it used in Kenya during the riots when they were trying to follow police incursions and keep the authoritarian regime like in check. So there's lots of different ways that people can use these technologies to govern themselves.
There is a worry, though, two worries. One of them is what you brought up earlier, which is the idea of, is there a problem with you don't understand us because you're now one of them, right? I see that. I'm with you a lot. When I speak to people who, particularly those who are not liberals, but actual leftists, right? People who are open communists, open socialists, right? Actual leftists.
Boo.
They often feel like the fact that you've made it in any way makes you by default no longer good anymore, right? Because you're now part of the bourgeoisie, right? So, don't go to college and learn anything because once you do that, now I mean, I see that constantly.
They're all hypocrites, all of them. Bausch, whatever that douchebag's name is, whatever. He's a commie. He makes $2 million like a month now, and he's like, "Oh, how commie are you now, guy, in your $1 million house?" Or the Black Lives Matter lady, she's like, "Peace, I'm a millionaire now. I bought this house." They all do it. Remember the autonomous zone in Seattle when they shut down?
Yep.
And the first thing they did was get guns and kill 2 16-year-olds. That's the first thing they did. It's the first thing they did. And those are the people to be like, guns are bad, police are bad. But like, it's like they're just hypocrites, and I hate them. I hate commies. They suck.
How do you feel about Bernie Sanders? Let me just get your
Oh, don't start him. Don't start him, Tim. What are you doing?
Piece of shit scumbag.
What are you doing?
I'm just saying, man. That guy.
I mean, I can disagree with someone's politics without taking it personally.
No, because he's another guy who's like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, and they're like, hey, here's money to drop out of this race. He's like, done, and he did it twice. He could go fuck himself. He's not like a morally good person. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not about like policies. He's a piece of shit.
It's funny you said, because again, leftists, not liberals, leftists now don't like Bernie Sanders because of that. And they'll tell you that right to your face. No. He
no
totally
socialists in my community are Bernie supporters anymore.
That's correct. Yes.
Unless they got offered $2 million, and they'll be like, yeah, man.
Well, the thing is like power and money corrupts, right? So you could have the best of intentions and be a socialist, I don't know, this idealist person that we're just going to live in some utopia as you want to, but as soon as you start getting power, I mean, I see it in like these activist groups when we're coming together, like they want to be the face and the name of the movement.
Yes.
You know, and for me, that's how you can differentiate between the people who are really there for the right reasons and the people who aren't, because the people who are actually there for the community, they're going to lead from the back, and it's not going to have to be their face that's on it. Right. And so,
yeah,
I see like how it's important to question when someone has made it and come back into the community and is trying to do something. And I think that that's an appropriate thing for do, particularly when you brought up, Adam, it's actually a Paul Farmer reference. He was a professor at a university who did international development. The one about the Congo, I actually think his narrative took place in Kenya, but about building the wells and them going bad is the fact of like they should question if you come to their community and you're trying to do something because you've screwed them over. People have come to these communities in Africa and Latin America and Asia, and they've messed stuff up. That well ended up poisoning people. Children died in that village, and that's the original like story narrative, is like they didn't teach them how to fix it, so when they left it got poisoned and the people died, and they didn't know they were getting all sick from this well. So then when finally somebody came and they're like testing the well and they're like, oh well, it's poisonous, they're like, oh well, those white people who came to my country to supposedly help me have now poisoned and killed me. So it's like understandable why they should question you, and I don't want to stop them from doing it because people act in a very questionable manner, but at the same time, like, we have to have heroes that are homegrown, right?
Yes.
And we should want them to succeed, because they can't compete in this world if they don't take every opportunity, if they don't build themselves up, if they don't have money, if they're out here worrying about their basic human needs, how are they going to help you?
Yeah. This is Malcolm X from the 60s. It's Malcolm X saying, we got to build up the Black community. We got to build up the Black community, ownership in the Black community, have our own businesses, not rely on others, so that we can be strong. It's Malcolm X from the 60s. He
grew up here in Lansing, Michigan, where I'm at right now.
Yeah. There we go.
I think that we have to understand and humble ourselves a little bit and realize, like, everybody should want to be bettering themselves, and we shouldn't be bringing each other down just because one of us was able to make it.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
This is why, as I get older, I've agreed more and more with Lex Luthor than I have with, because he's right. He's like, this alien is just coming here with unstoppable power just to do whatever he wants. You all trust him. He's like, fuck that. He's so right. He's right. His point's right. Like, he's like, we gotta take care of our own stuff. Like, this guy, can't trust this guy. And everyone's like, shut up, Lex. He's like, I'm not the bad guy. And I get it now as I get older. I get it.
That is a very, I didn't think you'd pull a Lex Luthor reference out of that one, Adam. That was very good. Well done.
Thanks.
Well done. That's good. Yeah, there we go. I just wish it wasn't
that the bad guy, though. I mean, I'm very confused.
Yes,
now.
Technically, he is a bad guy, but
technically,
I'm saying,
he's a villain. Yes,
I'm saying, because he does. He's like a Machiavellian type of guy. So that's what makes him evil. But like he's not wrong in his thought of the Superman thing. He's just wrong in how he goes about it.
Yes.
Because he didn't win. If he had
Yeah,
won,
right.
he'd be the good guy. The story
Right.
would be rewritten.
true.
Batman won. Be better.
It's true.
Batman's highly problematic as well.
Yes.
How
Well,
dare you? You take that back right now.
I love Batman, one of my favorite heroes. But if you look at the most recent movies, he just beats people up.
That's awesome.
That's
what
all
he's
he
talking
does.
about here.
It's just
That's what makes Batman cool. You guys aren't. I'm not gonna have this conversation with you. I have 2 Joker
just
tattoos and a
saying.
Bane tattoo. I'm not doing this. All right.
I'm not even saying Bane was wrong. I'm not even saying Bane
was
wrong.
kind of right too.
I'm not
definitely
even
was
saying
down
he
with
was wrong
Joker.
either.
I was down with the Joker.
I'm not even saying the Joker's wrong.
He's also
That
kind
guy
of right.
tapped into the primal urge to punch rich people right in the face.
Thanos also kind of right. I also
No, I
agree
hate
with
Thanos. I hate Thanos.
Fascist, but kind of right.
I am
No,
anti-Thanos.
that's not true. It's
I'm
random.
not
No,
buying the
I-
Thanos one. I'm not buying a Thanos one. I'm not saying snap and kill. I'm not buying that
It's
one.
random though. You guys aren't getting it. There's no genocide.
Stop.
It's
He just
random.
disappeared.
Thanos is a bad dude. Malthusians suck. Ironically, Malthusians have been around forever, bro. Forever.
No,
Okay, they
no,
go
I'm
back
not.
to
I'm not buying a Thanos one. Not on that one,
1600s.
Adam.
You guys aren't thinking outside the
I'll
box.
hang out with Joker. I'm gonna give you Bane. I'm not doing a Thanos one. No, I can't hang.
You
with
guys
that
aren't
one.
getting it. It's fine.
No way.
Think
No
more
way,
into
no
it,
way.
and you'll
I
turn.
get you.
I mean,
By the
Your
way,
turn. Thank you.
Heath
Your
Ledger,
turn.
best Joker ever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Not even close.
But now we're just
And
spitting
people-
facts, Larry.
Yes, best Joker ever. Clearly, best Joker ever. And the only way you'll ever replace him, if you ever did, it would have to be somebody who was crazier than him and says they're like his successor. Like you'd have to acknowledge him if you ever want to
Mm.
replace him.
Right,
Right? You couldn't just replace him. You have to go, I'm not that Joker, but I'm his successor. So accept me as the successor. And you probably might still be able to pull it off, but that's the only way you could pull it off by
Yeah.
still accepting his awesomeness.
I have on my wrist this tattoo. You can't really see it because my thing, but that's the Joker face right there, and it says, "I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve," which is what he says
There
in
we
Dark
go.
Knight. In Dark Knight, which is such a great line.
Absolutely.
That's a
Yes,
great line. Yeah.
absolutely. So Jericho says Rotary International is a fantastic organization. You can help your community, your country, and the world. And I think those organizations, they've been going away. Their influence, I think, has been less and less. And I think it's because so many government grants. I really think government grants have hurt mutual aid, have hurt localism like there's no tomorrow. And you would think that if you are someone who likes government, who is more left-leaning, who is someone who likes unions, you would hate government grants. Because what government grants make it happen is now you're a government agency, but you're not unionized. You're just a
You have to do
non-unionized
what they
government
tell
agency.
you to do. You have to spend that money the way that they want you to spend it. You have to, report things in the way that they want it reported. And if you
Yes.
don't, they'll pull it from you. Or if you disagree with a specific political candidate, they'll pull it from you. So you have to be all buttoned up and watch what you say when you're in these nonprofits, and then you also get treated like crap and don't get to be able to pay yourself a livable wage.
Yes.
It's crazy to me.
Yes.
Grant farming is a pretty successful business. Like, just ask Elon Musk. He has credit farmed himself into being the wealthiest man in the world. So when we get into credit farming, I think if you do it right, it's probably a pretty good business model.
Business model, yes. Look, if I want to make money off the government, grants are a great thing. I'm completely agreeing with you. But what I'm trying to say, Tim, is I actually want to solve a problem. That's way different.
We all want to solve problems, and we all agree that the government seems to not want to solve problems. They want to build an industry that rewards their friends. Like, that's our reality. They want to, their product that they sell is regulations. The money that they hand out is control. And that's where we're at. That's the war that we're fighting.
So then how do we, is this all a waste of time unless we change the culture? That's what I'm hearing, right? If we don't change the culture, then what are we doing, right? We could change a law if we want to, but it wouldn't change anything.
No,
we could lessen grants. It wouldn't change anything, right? We could throw money at the problem, right? I got, like Tim says, I'll just keep throwing money till you help yourself. You could do that too, but it wouldn't actually work. How do we change the culture? Or do we? Or is this a lost cause?
I don't want to believe it's a lost cause because I sit here every day and try to find alternative solutions to government malfeasance. Okay, and even the most well-intentioned government program always like devolves into a train wreck, and it becomes like this money-sucking behemoth that destroys itself and creates other problems. Right. So to me, the battle itself is worth fighting. The issue is how do we start? And of course, starting local is the right idea, right? Like your idea, Charla, I don't even think I could get away with it with what you do with your properties in my upstate New York, rural, where farms are falling in the ground, where I have had 59,000 people living in this county last year, and now it's down to 57,000. Like, and then it's because of affordable housing, and we have. I don't think I could do it. They would. Regulation and codes would rear its ugly head and make me miserable. Like,
I can never do it here in New York either. I would have to have at least $50 million to do it here in New York City. Yeah. And half of that would be bribing people. Right? Half of that's bribing.
Trump did a great job with that. Let's be honest. Like, that's his success.
Trump was very good at bribing.
Right?
That's his skill set.
Yeah, money is good for that. Other things like getting things done. Yeah, money talks. That's a saying.
100%. Yes.
I mean, we only have like 103,000 people here in Lansing, so.
Got it. I have 8.5 million. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. It's just we try to mirror downstate with their rules and regulations because we want to protect people, and that's a real like. We already protect people. We've gone too far. No one listens to me, but I'll keep talking.
I'm listening, Tim. I'm listening.
I know. And some people do listen. I'll be fair. There we go. Be honest. Yeah.
Patty says, if the path they want to take is suicide, do we allow it? It is a small rope. We jump there.
Wait, who's they?
Go ahead, Charles. I'm sorry.
Who's they in this scenario? Like the city?
The individual person who, doesn't want help. This goes back to when people didn't want help.
Jesus Christ.
If the person they're taking is actually suicide. Do we allow it?
Can you stop somebody who wants to commit suicide?
I mean, I don't think you should kill yourself, but I'm not gonna, like, what? Yeah, unless you're doing it in front of me, like, I'm not gonna, like, what am I gonna do? Like.
But the question is, and I think this is I think where she's going with this, the path they're taking. So they're not actively trying to kill themselves. They are just going down a path that is clearly going to kill them, right? The person that's saying, I'm gonna jump off a bridge. Right, I think you're right. If someone's jumping off a bridge, I can't stop someone from jumping off a bridge, right? Unless I'm going to physically grab them or something. I mean, I can't do it. But I think what she's saying is the path they're on. Like, you find so many people say fentanyl's the problem. Fentanyl's so bad, it's killing so many people. It's the problem. Fentanyl is not the problem. People want fentanyl, right? They're not getting tricked into fentanyl.
No, trust me. If you do cocaine, you do not want fentanyl.
Believe me when I tell
not in your uppers.
Yeah, you do not want to do cocaine and fentanyl. You will die. That's what
I'm saying is, but what I'm saying is people are going for it. And that is if you're on fentanyl, that is a path to suicide, right? That is a path to suicide if you're struggling to get fentanyl every day, right? I think that's what she means, not physically does someone want to kill themselves.
But if you're buying cocaine, you know that there's a chance that there might be fentanyl in it. So you're willing to take that risk.
Yep.
When you say that somebody doesn't like, oh, we should stop them from killing themselves, what you're saying is, oh, they just don't know any better. And it's like, they kind of know. I think making sure that they have access to rehabilitation and recovery and harm reduction services would be really great in those instances. But to say like, also, it's like our job to stop them from killing themselves. Again, I find that to be extremely controlling and parental of saying like people can't make that choice for themselves.
Yeah, let me take it a little different way. Like, let me take a swing at this pitch. If someone's actively trying to jump off of a bridge, I'm gonna physically stop.
That's what I just said. I said I'm gonna stop them. I said unless it's in front of me,
right? But if it's every single day they're demanding that I stop them from jumping off of a bridge, at some point it's gonna be their problem, right? Like I can't stop their determination of them destroying themselves. So I wonder if there's a metaphor there for how we can do mutual aid and how we choose who we mutual aid with, right? Like
we could love them in their suicide.
I'm down with
make it as comfortable for them as possible.
I'm down with people making choices. I want them
go
to
one
be
step further than that, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And my mother was an addict. So I've had an addict in my life, and if anyone else knows, almost everyone listening has had an addict somewhere in their life because they're everywhere, right? So what I always say is, I couldn't stop my mother from doing it. I couldn't. And as a youngster, I was a teenager. It was horribly hurtful for me because I couldn't understand, right? I took it as you picked the drug over me. That's how I took that, not realizing that every addict does that to everyone, everywhere, all the time. That's literally what being an addict is. But at 17, I couldn't get that. I was too immature to understand that. I took it as you hate me, right? That's how I took it. So my anger didn't make things better, right? The reverse was true, right? When my mom finally hit her rock bottom, which for her was jail time, that was her bottom. Some people's bottom is death. I'm lucky my mom's was only jail time. So when that happened, to your point, Joe, that's when I went to her and I was like, I love you. I got you. And you never know. Is it the first I love you, the 20th I love you, the 200th I love you, the 2000th I love you? But hopefully one of those I love yous is the one that's going to get the person to go, all right, I want to help. Okay, I want to help. And to your point, Charla, if you have centers for them to go to, you can find your addict. For those of you who've had an addict in your life, you know sometimes they just disappear. Like you just can't find them. You don't know where they are, right? But if they have a place, you can always go find your loved one who's an addict and tell them,
they'll be
I love
using
you.
clean needles and they'll be getting tested and it will be clean product. So they're not overdosing like that. And then you're taking them away from the streets and away from their dealers who are pushing harder drugs, who sexually assault people, who are doing really extra shady stuff. Like just the legalization of marijuana and cannabis products here in Michigan has completely changed the way people interact because they no longer have to go to a drug dealer. They don't have to be around cocaine or heroin to go pick up their weed. You know, they're not waiting on some drug dealer for 2 or 3 hours and show up and, you know, they're like, hey, you want to stay for a drink? You don't have to do that anymore. You can get it delivered to your house. You don't even need to talk to anybody.
Yeah, it's a bummer you don't get cool stories growing up anymore. I know, it sucks. How many cool stories I have growing up? That's gone for kids now. I haven't.
We're never going to have that experience. So to speak to that, like, isn't fentanyl really a byproduct of the war on drugs because it's easier
100%.
to transport? It's condensed version of a narcotic
cheaper. So that's why they cut it with coke.
Yeah, so I mean, ending the war on drugs and ending the black market associated with drugs would have real harm reduction benefits in our society, right?
100%.
And the risk of fentanyl would automatically decrease. There would be a product control system. I don't want people to do drugs, but I don't want people to go to jail because they did do drugs.
Of course.
And I don't want them to get hooked into some crappy deal to pay for their drugs because they're now involved in a black market. I don't want any of that. Portugal doesn't suck, guys. I mean, they have a pretty successful
great, actually.
plan, you know?
I've been there.
Well,
Tim, there you go.
Tim, you just pretty much said something that I always talk about all the time. Like, there's a difference between legalization and making something socially acceptable, right? Like,
yes.
like this is the thing with I'm gonna get yelled at for people on this. I don't really care. It's my personal feeling, so fuck off. But like sex work is a good example, right? Yep. I don't think you should go to jail for that.
I agree.
But I would never, ever encourage that in society and be like, this is something you should do. Or tell a young girl to be like, grow up and do that. Like, I would never do it. I'd be like, no, I would shame it, honestly. But I don't think that person should go to jail or prison or fucking get the rights taken away because they want to do that. I just think it's not great for young children to grow up and want to do. Is my point.
And there's nothing wrong with you not liking something, right? There's nothing wrong with even saying it, right? That's the First Amendment. I can say, shame on you, you shouldn't do X thing. You can. I just can't stop you or put you in jail.
Which is my exact point. I don't want to stop anybody. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to.
I don't think people should do meth. I don't think people should do coke. I think it's a bad idea. But I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to put you in jail because of it. I'm a square. The only drug I use is caffeine. I'm a total square. But so what? If you want to do something, go ahead. Who am I to stop you? I agree. And I think that, look, I think that a good thing for women to do, particularly younger women to do, is to start their life out in a sex work industry. I agree with you. I think it's not good. I don't think it's not good for their psyche. I don't think it's good at all for them. I believe that's not good for them. But so what? I'm not their dad.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
I'm not their dad. If I'm your dad, I can point my finger at you and shake my finger at you if I want to. It's fine. I'm not your dad. Who cares?
No, but this also goes back to like culture, right? And like, should we be encouraging our young women in our country to go into OnlyFans work?
No, right? No,
like that's what I'm saying. So like, yes, like there is that thing of exactly there is that
OnlyFans.
There is that thing of like, yeah. Again, I want to reiterate, I truly don't believe anybody should go to prison for that. I never think that. But again, I don't think we should be like, that's a viable option you could do. It's like, it is a viable option technically, but like a lot of things are viable options. I can rob a bank.
No, it is a viable option, but you can have an opinion that you think it's a bad idea. That's not a problem, right? Freedom of speech doesn't go away because you're libertarian, right? You can still think things are bad. You can still believe it's not a good idea.
For sure,
to
but
do.
I think it goes to the bigger problem of a culture issue. It's like we want to change culture, so like we have to openly talk about it. Like I don't think that's good for great. I get the need for it and the want. I agree with you.
So
I get all of it.
If we're gonna do that, though, right? If we're gonna do that, I agree with you. But I think that there are too many women, and it's men too, but it's mostly women who go into this field because they think it's the best option for them, right? Either happily or not happily, either one, whether it's voluntary or not, if they're trafficked or not. But most sex workers are not trafficked. But whatever the case may be, they believe it's the appropriate move for them. If we're going to say they shouldn't do it, we also have to create an environment to where there's no need for them and they feel like it's not the right answer. And the women who choose to do it say, no, there are many options. This is the one I want, not I think it's the best one.
That's a good point, really.
And I'm also wondering, like, what cultures in the world don't have sex work or drugs?
No,
because I would be hard pressed to like find cultures.
All of them, every single one. We're human beings.
Cultures also have war and death.
Right, exactly.
And culture
it doesn't mean I want them, though, right? No,
exactly.
all cultures also have sex, have war and death and murder. I still don't want that in my society, though. But all have it,
right? Except
so
one,
I would rather have it
directly
to where
hurting somebody else, like war, and the other you're just not. That's the difference, really. So it's but Larry nailed it. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I of course I want to make it to where I always want to make it to where I'll go back to the opposite, the traditional way. Also, if you're a woman who says I don't want to work, I want to stay at home, have babies, be a mommy, the whole deal. That's all I want to do. I want to have a man take care of me. That's what I want to do. I'm not mad at you. That's fine life to have, but you shouldn't do it because you believe it's the only option for you. You do it because that's what makes you happy. You want to be that traditional wife, and that's what you want to do. Awesome for you. But we should make a world to where a woman chooses that because that's an option she has, not the only option she feels she has. That's all I'm saying. Both sides.
All the way down the line, right? Like, we don't have to hate people because of their choices. And we get this benevolent authoritarianism where we could run the risk of offending somebody by saying, hey, you know what? I don't want my kid to go into sex work or whatever. And like, what kind of authoritarian nonsense is our society dealing with? Like, there would be people that will legitimately challenge our views of saying, hey, I don't think sex work is okay, but I don't want him to go to jail. And they'll be like, what are you, some kind of prude? Like, the whole world could come crashing down on Adam Nutter, the tattooed comic, for like going off about, not wanting his kids.
Oh, you mean like in cancel culture? You mean like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Can't cancel me. I'm a comedian. I'm a comedian with no day job. What are you talking about? You can cancel me from. I'm like, OnlyFans. Fuck out of here. But
very, very tough to cancel Adam. The worst you can do is maybe get him kicked off Twitter. That's about all you can do. That's about it.
Congrats.
Here we go. That's it.
But I think you guys get what I'm saying, right? Like, we're almost expressing some controversial counterculture views or old-fashioned conservative views here that the world wants to crap on right now. And I don't know why that is. And I feel as though there's a push from the government too. I don't feel like it's just cancel culture. I feel like it's in the virtue that gets signaled from our government.
This is the problem that we have. And I know this because I used to do a lot of DEI training, right? And now people don't want me to do my DEI training because my DEI training is actual emotional communication. It's not the garbage they want you to do now. I teach you how to resolve and deal with and manage problems and open communication. And that, the sad part is just going the opposite. For those of you who may remember this, if you're old enough, Tim, you might remember this. You're old. You're old like me.
Older, actually,
you might remember this. Back in the 80s and 90s, it used to be called diversity training, and diversity training was terrible. I mean, it was horrible. It was literally reinforcing stereotypes. Training would be things like, well, you know, if you're going to Asia or you have Asian people, make sure you have tea and not coffee.
Yes,
That was the training. You remember that garbage? That's what it was. I'm like, just so because you're Asian, you like tea? Well, who knows? Maybe non-Asian will like tea. What?
I
Like,
left you guys
just
for being
insane.
old, but I totally also remember diversity training when I was a
Yeah.
kid. So I'm
Yes.
also old.
Just terrible.
It's
So
good to
I
know that they
revamped
still
the
hand it
entire
out
thing.
there. That garbage. It's wonderful.
I was literally doing it for the New York City agencies. I was teaching Department of Transportation, Department of Buildings, Office of Emergency Management. So I did a lot of that kind of training. Now, the government says, no, I want stereotype. Everyone's mad. I teach a class that specifically says there's a difference between intent and impact. And it's important to understand the difference between both of those things. There is a difference. Impact is one thing, intent's another. You have to understand the difference between the two on how you have a conversation. And if you're unsure, here is how you ask. Here is how you have. Here's how you make the conversation to see where the intent was. Because someone who's actually a misogynist or actually racist, they will always show their true selves through their intent. They always will. They can't stop. They will. If you are calm and cool, you will find it out. Now you have an actual problem, not a miscommunication, right? There's a difference between the two. Now, literally, the taunt is intent does not matter. All that matters is impact. If that's true, then there's no such thing as manslaughter. There's no such thing as murder 1, 2, or 3. Those no longer exist. It is simply murder.
Right.
Did the person die? Yes, that is the impact. You are a murderer. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, no, Larry, that's actually a hilarious point you just made because again, this is also a left. Not keep shit on the left, but I mean, it's the theme of the night. I feel like, like it's just like really a lefty thing is like again, like that's kind of from the left, right? Like the whole diversity training, all that.
It is. My point was it was government sponsored. I was backing up.
100% government sponsored. Of course it is. But like,
yes.
the funny part is like, you know, especially though the left is a lot of like times like it really started from like two guys at a water cooler being like, hey, see Jim, he's black, he's eating chicken today. That's pretty funny, right? And like, it was like a harmless joke like that. And they're like, hey, you can't make those jokes anymore. And you're like, oh, okay. And it went from that to them now being like, we need the most stereotypical guy to position this position. Like, are you Asian? It's like, yeah, but like, no, you got to be more Asian. Like, we want like the Fu Manchu Asian. We want like the guy with the gong. Like that's where they went with it.
We want
they
the
went
guy with a gong. Oh my God.
Stereotypical, like whatever it is. And you're like, hey, do you not see the irony here? Like you went completely like a 360 with it almost. Like it's not real life. This is real life. Like no one dresses like that guy. Like what are you looking for? It's weird.
Well, I think something that you said there, Larry, like struck me as like something that's hypocritical in regards to the left, because in public that is how they are, but in activist circles, it's not about impact. It's more about intent. And so we need to talk about how they didn't intend to do that. So you can't be mad at the impacts that the person's actions had because that wasn't their intent, right?
Right.
So this is why we're like all confused because everything is so contradictory and nothing really is logical.
Yes.
Things are used when it benefits the right. Tactics are used when it benefits the left, and it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
There's no science to
Totally
it. There's
true.
no logic
Totally
to follow. And it's frustrating because I think you're right. Both do matter. Intent does matter. And impact matters, but you have to take responsibility for the impact regardless of your intent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it.
Brian asked the crazy question. Now for the hard question. Should bestiality be illegal?
So you see a hot cat, you see a hot cat. What are you going to do? Not fuck that cat? That's crazy. You're not have sex with that cat? You're going to have sex with that cat?
It has to be illegal because an animal cannot consent.
Obviously, the answer is yes.
An animal cannot
I mean, if that was a
consent.
real question. The answer is, of
That was
course,
a real
make it
question.
illegal.
Of
But
course,
I
an
answer it as a
animal
joke
cannot
because it
consent.
has to be a joke question.
Oh, no, it's totally a joke. We know Brian's got a
key.
great sense of humor.
Yes. Consent is everything. We are libertarians. We are the party of consent.
I am not a real libertarian if libertarians believe in bestiality.
Correct. Yes. 100%. Yes. No. Yes. Yes.
But what happens if the sheep looks like it wants it? Is that okay?
I grew up on a farm, bro. I'm telling you, that's different.
That's good.
Well, that sheep's being a little flirty. You know what I'm saying?
The scientific libertarian says it's true. Larry is the best person to have during debate and the worst to have at an after party. Well, unless you want to ride home, then I am a very good person to have at the after party, right? I guess
Roasted.
that's something. You want to ride home, maybe, but yes, I am a little square in that regard. That's true. Yes, you are correct. Guilty as charged. Yes. Joel says the kid on South Park named Token is a great example.
So
Which
funny.
you saw what they did on that. You guys have you watched South Park? What they did with
South
that?
Park every year since I was 10.
love
Yeah, I
that
watched
show.
South Park.
Yeah, I watched
So
that
now
part.
his name is Tolkien,
Tolkien.
and it was always Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knew it was Tolkien, except for Stan. He was like, oh my God, I'm a racist. That's what he thought. Which in reality, that's not true. They just made that happen now. And they changed because, to Charles' point, it's just changed. Yes.
That's actually South Park doing that is actually very surprising to me. Like them like like you know, being like, all right. Like,
I don't think they kowtowed. I
No, it
think
was
that
making
was
fun of it. It was meant to
Yes.
be. They did it on purpose. They were making fun of. It was like a.
oh,
very
okay. Sorry. The way
metaphor-
Larry was describing it was like it made me sound like they were okay. No. Well, that sounds like South
Yeah,
Park.
but that's how it came across. But it is purposely being sarcastic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So,
push
yes.
the envelope all the time.
They
Yeah.
do.
They
They do.
challenge everything that we challenge. I would guess that they have libertarianism.
They are
somewhere,
both open
like,
libertarians.
oh,
yes,
good.
open-
Yeah,
I
but
guess
like,
I knew that.
are they? You know, like they never fucking talk about it.
I
They
know,
only
I
do when
know.
they like get in trouble. They'll be like,
You know,
"Oh,
every
well, I don't really care."
libertarian has to talk about it.
Yeah, it's like
I know
yes,
they
exactly.
should.
You
You're
get it.
right.
Charlie gets it.
Yes, they should. More. Why aren't both of them on the show with us? Why don't we have 6 people here? Why isn't it Trey Parker and Matt
Yeah,
Stone?
if they
why,
were
why aren't they
truly
here?
libertarians, they would hire me for something.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying. I completely
Fellow
agree.
libertarian.
I completely agree.
Not to be a
Terrible.
bummer, guys, but I gotta go.
Yes, no worries. I appreciate, guys. Before you wrap this up, a couple things I want to make sure we're doing. Number one, I hope you click that like button. It does matter. If you did think it was valuable and you enjoyed it, click that like button. It does matter. If you were watching on Twitter, please retweet this so people can see it. It does matter, and it's free. It's absolutely free. If you want to support my sponsors, please do so. Theadvocates.org. They have many, many quizzes and tests there. They're all free. Just take one and share it. Do that. It makes my sponsors very happy. And again, it's all free. And finally, be good to the people who showed up tonight, the people who gave us an hour and a half of amazing, awesome fun. Follow on Twitter, Tim for Senate, Tattooed Comic. And on Instagram, please follow Charla at Venture Novelist. Guys, thank you all so much for tonight. I appreciate all the time you gave me. I will see all of you